ओम।
शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत्तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यां मलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम्। ॐ ध्यायेन्नित्यं महेशं रजतगिरिनिभं चारुचन्द्रावतंसं रत्नाकल्पोज्ज्वलाङ्गं परशुमृगवराभीतिहस्तं प्रसन्नं पद्मासीनं समन्तात् स्तुतममरगणैः व्याघ्रकृत्तिं वसानं विश्वाद्यं विश्वबीजं निखिलभयहरं पञ्चवक्त्रं त्रिनेत्रम्। ॐ नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्।
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच। धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमु कुर्वत संजय। श्री भगवान उवाच। क्लैब्यं मास्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्तोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच। मदनुग्रहाय परमं गुह्यमध्यात्मसंज्ञितं यत्त्वयोक्तं वचस्तेन मोहोऽयं विगतो मम। मन्यसे यदि तच्छक्यं मया द्रष्टुमिति प्रभो योगेश्वर ततो मे त्वं दर्शयात्मानमव्ययम्। श्री भगवान उवाच। न तु मां शक्यसे द्रष्टुम् अनेनैव स्वचक्षुषा दिव्यं ददामि ते चक्षुः पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्। संजय उवाच। एवमुक्त्वा ततो राजन् महायोगेश्वरो हरिः दर्शयामास पार्थाय परमं रूपमैश्वरम्। दिवि सूर्यसहस्रस्य भवेद्युगपदुत्थिता यदि भासदृशी सा स्यात् भासस्तस्य महात्मनः। ततः स विस्मयाविष्टो हृष्टरोमा धनञ्जयः प्रणम्य शिरसा देवं कृताञ्जलिर्भाषत। अर्जुन उवाच त्वमक्षरं परमं वेदितव्यं त्वमस्य विश्वस्य परं निधानम् त्वमव्ययः शाश्वतधर्मगोप्ता सनातनस्त्वं पुरुषो मतो मे। अनादिमध्यान्तमनन्तवीर्यम् अनन्तबाहुं शशिसूर्यनेत्रम् पश्यामि त्वां दीप्तहुताशवक्त्रं स्वतेजसा विश्वमिदं तपन्तम्। द्या वा पृथिव्योरिदमन्तरं हि व्याप्तं तयैकेन दिशश्च सर्वाः दृष्ट्वाद्भुतं रूपमुग्रं तवेदं लोकत्रयं प्रव्यथितं महात्मन्।
Thank you, Shalabh. Most delightful verses, although they should be updated. I realized we are still reading several chapters before, but the verses are still very beautiful. So, chapter 18, Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. Any questions on what we have read so far? So the question starts with, what is the nature of, should karma be completely given up, right? Or Bhagavan then says, yajna dana tapa should not be given up, right?
जी.
And but even these works should be done without attachment to them and to their fruits. So, and then he goes on to distinguish the approaches, tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic, noting that giving up niyata karma, obligatory work, is tamasic due to delusion, due to bodily fatigue. If it is given up as troublesome, that relinquishment is called rajasic. Actually, in this context, I wanted to mention that when we do things like Pitru Puja or even other yajnas and stuff, there is a word called krichram. You know this word, krichram? Krichram is a tedious work. So, for instance, you will be asked to take a broom and painstakingly sweep a corner of a room. This is a krichram. Do you understand? And there is even something called Prajapatya Krichram. That is the very Krichra of Prajapati. The menial work that the creator had to engage in. We seemingly repeat that when we do certain Pitru Pujas and Yajnas. And why do we do that? It is to make us aware that even the most menial, tedious work that we are given, right, must be approached with the right attitude. Do you understand? We must not think that, oh, I'm so intelligent that I don't need all this stuff. I can straight away sit in Padmasana and attain, right? So as part of our practices, there will be certain tedious parts also. Is that not true in life? Filling out a tax form. Filling out a tax form is a kind of Manushya Krichram. Unavoidable. Correct? Has to be done. So similarly, there are many such. So now if we try to relinquish the works that are niyata karmas due to that kind of a feeling that, oh, this is going to be tiring, then they say that Bhagavan gives a high bar and he says such relinquishment is rajasic. And karyam iti eva yat karma niyatam kriyate. Holding that work is to be done without a break. Sangam tyaktva phalam chaiva satyaga satviko mataha. Giving up attachment is very, of course, very high bar, right? This is a very high bar. But what I think is more reasonable is that at least to keep this in the back of our mind. So every time attachment to the work or its fruit comes up, at least we can remind ourselves that this is the ideal. Yes or no? There are two choices, right? See, Let us suppose a human being is attached to work or its fruit. One can go about continuing to be attached. Yes or no? Right? What Bhagavan is saying is this will lead to pain in the long term. All right. On the other hand, if this attitude, although recognizing the mind is not yet fully purified, it is still imperfect, if one at appropriate moments, to the extent possible, reminds oneself of this, then that itself is, in my opinion, a great karma yoga. That is more, is that attainable?
Yeah.
Most definitely. Anybody can do that. Right? I'm not saying that you should aim for perfection. And this is completely consistent with what the Yoga Sutra says. What does the Yoga Sutra say? It says, Bhoga apavargartham drishyam. This is a very, very important verse in the Yoga Sutra. What is drishyam? Any Sanskrit Pandits here?
Something that is seen.
Excellent. Shiva, you have definitely merited the title of Sanskrit Pandit. Yes, the seen. Drishyam. Excellent. Excellent. Drishyam. So, that which is seen. What is seen? So, the entire riddle of our life is who is the seer and who is the seen, right? Correct? Okay.
Right.
So, in the beginning, we can say that this body conglomerate, right? Body conglomerate with its eye, physical senses, and its ability to see from this standpoint this is the seer, that is the seen. Correct? This is what we know. Yeah. So let's say we don't know anymore even. Okay. Bhoga, what does bhoga mean?
To enjoy, or
Yeah.
to, yeah.
Very good. Enjoy or experience.
Yeah.
Right? Experience, enjoyment. Correct. Bhoga. Apavarga, liberation. Okay. So now you go through life, you take your whole day, okay? You break it up into two parts. Every instance in your life today, right? You just classify in two packages. Was it enjoyable? Okay, can you list 3 things that were enjoyable today?
Eating food.
4. Okay.
Eating food.
Eating food. Okay, very good. Like that you list. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you take the complementary set. Do you understand complementary set? A and A complement. Correct? A is a set. A complement is everything else. Yes.
जी.
Okay. A complement is your, let us give a slightly different word. Let's not talk about liberation. Let us call it learning. Okay. If you don't enjoy something in life, that is for your learning. You follow this simple formula. You classify your entire life into 2 segments: enjoyment, learning. Okay. When your learning is perfect, everything is enjoyment. If you are not enjoying every instant of your life, that means there is some learning to be done. What do you think? It's a simple fact. Right? If everything is Satchidananda, yes or no? Is it not? Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, Satchidananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. Right? So if we are not enjoying something at any instant, what should it mean? It means there is some learning to be done. Right? And that is why the Yoga Sutra says it is either for bhoga or apavarga. Okay. Now you take a person at different stages of their evolution. Right? you take yourself, okay, at a previous time in your life and now, okay. Do you think your life is more enjoyable now than it was before? When you were younger, were you more or less ignorant?
More ignorant.
More
More
ignorant.
ignorant. So then what happened? Were there more lessons to be learned when we were younger?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. जी.
Primarily, what are those lessons? Controlling the mind.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever the mind ran away into foolish paths, there was pain. Right? That's all the Yoga Sutra is saying. So, same thing here, right? What is the connection with this? The idea that work is to be done without a break, giving up the attachment, right? So it's a very high ideal, correct? What I'm saying is bring it down. Let's suppose there is attachment. Let's acknowledge there is attachment. Let's acknowledge there is attachment both to the work and the fruit. Okay. Now we are all engaged in our work, right? Work. We go to work, right? Suppose tomorrow your company shuts down and they say you go home. Okay. You will get minimum food to eat. Okay. How will our minds feel? We will miss it, right?
Yeah.
Won't you miss work?
Yeah.
If you're told to stop working,
Definitely.
you will miss it, right? So we acknowledge, yes, we will miss work, correct? So then the next question is, so that means some attachment is there, right? Now, why is this attachment good or bad? Okay. Why does Bhagavan say do the work with the sattvic? The sattvic attitude is to do, of course, he's saying obligatory work. Another question is whether our work is obligatory or not. Right? In what sense is it obligatory? This one can debate, correct? But basically, a better attitude is to say that suppose you cannot do that work anymore tomorrow, you can console your mind by at least saying in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan has said this, right? So today what he's saying is, today you should work as though it is your first day at work, even if it's your last day at work, right? It's a high ideal, undoubtedly. But when we sometimes at least play out these imaginary scenarios, then it can help us understand the depth of our attachment, right? Let us say you wanted something in your work, some fruit, correct? Maybe a project you wanted to be assigned to very much, right? Or some promotion or a recognition or a salary increase, which you've been denied for a long time. If it doesn't come through, right, what will the mind feel? You definitely feel disappointment, right? What is this? You will even feel, I was very deserving of these things. I deserve to get that project. I'm most qualified, right? Other people I'm being overlooked. I'm being passed over. This will definitely arise, right? Yes. Okay. Let us say it arises. Let it arise. The question is, tomorrow when we do the work, are we going to do the work with 10% less effort because of that? Should we? What Bhagavan is saying is don't. Okay. And actually, this is a very good formula for success in daily life also, which is that if one does that, then that reflects in your entire career, right? But if you continue to engage with enthusiasm, a new opportunity will come. Because good people will always recognize your tenacity, right? It may not come today, but it will definitely come tomorrow, or in 6 months, or in a year, right? Do you see what I'm trying to say? That fortune wheel will go up and down, right? but your quality of tenacity will be recognized by others in the long term. Isn't this practically true? Right? But if you get bitter about it and you start griping to everybody at the water fountain, your colleagues will start avoiding you after some point. They'll say, this guy, he only says something negative all the time. I don't want to talk to him, you know, because they may be succeeding very well, right, in the company. Right? Then you will become ostracized and slowly your prospects will also decline. Right? But if you bounce back, right, eventually what was denied to you will come manifold. Right? Because other people in other companies will see you. Right? And when they know your history, they will definitely appreciate the good ones will appreciate your tenacity. Right? Which is not to say that you should not consider other options. I'm not trying to say that therefore continue slaving in a dead-end situation. No, that's not what I'm saying. But as long as one is in that job, one should do it. Do you see what I'm trying to say? You may apply to other opportunities, right? But this is kind of what Bhagavan is saying. And now he's, of course, talking about the obligatory work of our Nitya Karma, right? And so that is, if that is the attitude we should have towards external work, then imagine the attitude we should have towards our internal work, right? Obviously, it's more precious, right? And if that internal work is cultivated, when the external work you're told to go home and you get 3 meals a day, you can immediately engage in the internal work. You will not miss the external work. Right? You can say, oh, this is a wonderful opportunity for me to fully practice all the things that I wanted to do in my spare time. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Right? It turns the notion of work on its head. Right? Another way to look at it is, you know that Bhagavan has already said, Prakritehe kriyamanani. That is, this thing which we call work is nothing but the gunas playing with the gunas. Right? When we descend into the body, what is the predominant guna in the body?
Tamasic.
Tamasic.
Tam-
Correct. It is jada. It is inert. It has no intelligence unless the prana moves in it. Right? So now, how must we overcome this tamasic? So we are given the Sharira Yatra, the journey in the body. Right? So what can we do to overcome this tamas?
Apply Rajas.
Activity. Yeah. Something activating through rajas. Okay. Then how should we overcome that rajas?
Sattva.
Through some wisdom,
Sattva.
sattva. Through wise activity, to guiding the activity in a wise way. Right? So from that viewpoint also, activity is inevitable. Right? And the highest activity is this niyata karma. Right? Because that is the fulcrum on which everything else is rotating. Right? So when we say Gayatri Mantra or your daily practice, Nitya Karma, your Nitya Sadhana, Dhyan, those things, Bhagavan says, should be done without a break. Even our Yoga Sutra says, Satu Nairantarya Dirghakala Asevito Druda Bhumihi. And that, when cultivated uninterruptedly for a long time, becomes a firm foundation. What is that? That is Abhyas, Yoga Abhyas. So this uninterrupted continuation. Then we were, I think, coming to 10. Is that right?
We completed 35.
Oh, we completed 35. Why does my thing here? I must have moved the bookmark. Okay. So then Bhagavan goes on to talk about so 11, and then the threefold nature of karma, the 5 causes, yes, adhishthanam, etc. Right. Karta, Karanam, Pratak, Vidham. Yes, so the description of these. And then Gyayam, Gyayam, Parigyata, Trividha, Karma Chodana. So, knowledge, the knowable, and the knower is a threefold mandate. The instrument, work, and agent are the threefold summary. So now Bhagavan is explaining the threefoldness of knowledge in verse 20 onwards. So, sattvic knowledge, again, seeing the same one coming as many, this is sattvic knowledge. Rajasic knowledge, seeing differences as real. And then tamasic knowledge, sticking to one object as a whole and whose knowledge is unveridical and petty. Tamasic knowledge. Myopic knowledge. Sattvic work, obligatory, done without attachment, without raga dvesha, one who does not seek its fruit. Rajasic work is done with passion for desired fruit by egoistic agent, entails much labor. Work undertaken due to delusion and without regard for consequences, loss, violence involved, and competence is said to be tamasic. Then, what is the nature of the agent? Sattvic is the agent devoid of attachment, unegoistic, rich in resolution and zeal, changeless in success and failure. Agent who is attached seeks the fruits. Karta, that karta. Greedy, violent, unclean, glad, and sad is known as Rajasic. Unintegrated, uncultured, stiff, deceitful, malicious, indolent, downcast, and procrastinating, Dirgha Sutri is the tamasic agent. Buddhair Bhedam Dhritaischa. Now listen to the threefold variety of the intellect, buddhi, and its resolve, dhriti. That intellect is sattvic, which knows action and inaction, karya, akarya, duty and non-duty, pravritti, nivritti, karya, karya, bhaya, abhaya, bondage, liberation, bandham, moksha. Rajasic, which understands erroneously righteousness and unrighteousness, duty and non-duty. Dharma, adharmam cha karyam cha akaryam eva cha ayathavat prajanati buddhi sa partha rajasi. That which takes unrighteousness for righteousness. Adharmam dharmamiti cha manyate ya manyate tamasavrita. Sarvarthan vipadri, taking everything in a contrary way. Vipadritans cha buddhi sa partha tamasi. Unfaltering resolve is sattvic, by which one, through concentration, maintains the functions of mind, vital breaths, and senses. So this is a very deep understanding. Dhriti. It is that resolve that maintains these. This is done through samadhi, concentration. Yayatu dharma kamarthan dhritya dharayate Arjuna, prasangena phalakankshi, dhritihi sapartha rajasi. But that resolve which one upholds, by which one upholds righteousness, sexual attachment, and wealth, while occasionally desiring fruits of works, is Rajasic. Tamasic is the resolve by which a mean-minded man clings to sleep, fear, grief, dejection, and indulgence. Swapnam, bhayam, shokam, bishadam, madam evacha. So, these are the resolves. So, next was, this is where we start. Is that 36?
Ji.
Achha. Please start 36.
Sukham tvidanim trividham shृणु me bharatarshab abhyasadramate yatra dukhantam cha nigacchati. Beautiful.
The threefoldness of works and their accessories with reference to the constituents has been set forth. That is with the gunas. So, karta and gunas has been talked about. Karma and karta. Now is stated that of fruits and pleasure. Karakanam, kriyanam, karakanam. Now is stated that of phalasya, sukhasya. So, first one. Now listen to the...
Sorry.
Pardon?
No, I thought maybe you wanted to read.
No. So I just wanted to finish this translation. Sukham tu idanim trividham shruno me Bharatarshava. That is, O bull of the Bharatas, listen now. Shrunu, imperative. second person, singular, me, by me. What should you listen? What is this pleasure? To idanim, and its threefold nature. Abhyasat ramate yatra, that in which through practice one delights. Dukkhantam cha nigacchati, reaching the end of pain. The experience of pleasure in which through practice or repetition one delights and surely reaches the end of pains. Then next one, please, 37. Yep.
Yattad agrevishamiva pariname mritopamam tat sukham satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam.
Yeah, you are right actually to read them together because they both relate to the sattvic nature of pleasure. Yet that agre visham, that which at the beginning is like poison. Parinam me amrita upamam, but in its result is similar to ambrosia, nectar, like. Tat sukham, that pleasure is said to be sattvic, proktam, atma buddhi prasadajam. It is born of the clarity of one's intellect. So any kind of effort which Bhagavan here is talking also of abhyasa, right? Ramate yatra, dukkhantam cha nigacchati, reaching the end of pain. So this combination, through practice, one delights and reaches the ends of pains, and the pleasure which in the beginning, so this is like the bliss, right? The bliss, atmic bliss, the bliss which is in the Anandamaya Kosha, right? How is the bliss in the Anandamaya Kosha reached? Through abhyas, correct? Yoga abhyas was mentioned. Abhyasa vairagya abhyam tan nirodha, Yoga Sutra says, right? Abhyasa, practice, vairagya, dispassion. Through them, that is restrained, right? Chitta vritti is restrained through abhyasa and vairagya. So what is abhyas? Tatra yatne sthito abhyasa. To rest in that silence, in the seer, the effort made to rest in that seer is, in that state, is called practice, abhyas. Correct? So what is happening here is, in the beginning, is yoga abhyas pleasant? No. It is very hard. It is not pleasant in the beginning. But at the end, the fruit is sweet. Let us take our own studies. So many of you have gone to very advanced studies in graduate school and things like that, right? Now, definitely all through your schooling, many people after high school, they say it is enough. I can't take this anymore, right? It's more hard work. Why do more hard work? I can even get a job after high school, right? Or, okay, I finished college. I can get a college. After bachelor's, I can get a job, right? But the one who studies more deeply definitely gains some more depth of understanding, right? So that hard work has a fruit in the end, a pleasant fruit, right? So those things that may seem sometimes in the beginning a harder road, provided the goal is a good one. The goal has to come in from the internal, right? And the highest goal here, of course, is the all good goals are nothing but reflection of this goal of the seer. Every good thing that you see in life, every good goal is nothing but a reflection of the seer.
I didn't quite understand that.
So every effort you make to study, to train the mind. Now, if you go to college or you go to graduate study, what is it doing? in a sense, regardless of the topic of study, you have to train the mind. You have to focus. You have to concentrate. Can you achieve your graduate degree without concentration?
No.
No. Is it true that the more concentrated one will achieve the result faster?
Yeah.
Yes. So ultimately, it is a test of concentration. Now, does concentration help you if it is channeled in the right direction on the ultimate path? Dharana. Right? Okay. Let us take the attitude of helping somebody. Those who help other people are said to be far more happier. They did a study, psychological study. They gave two groups of people $100. Group A could spend $100 on themselves. Group B was told to spend $100 on other people. At the end of the day, they gathered the two groups and they measured their level of happiness. Guess who had higher level of happiness?
The ones who shared, did things for others.
Yes. The ones who spent the money on others had greater happiness than the ones who spent it on themselves. Okay. So what does this study teach us? It comes from the same sattvic point. If it is the Lord who is, or the one pervading reality is there in everything, the act of sharing reminds us of that. And it is impelled by that, right? Yes or no?
Ji.
So isn't it a reflection of the same thing? Yes or no? You take as many examples as you want. And if viewed in the right light, it will be seen. Yes or no?
Yes.
Right? Okay. Does that make sense?
Ji.
Acha. Shall we read 38?
Yeah. विषयेन्द्रिय संयोगात् यत्तद् अग्रे अमृतोपमं परिणामे विषमिव तत्सुखं राजसं स्मृतम्.
Yeah, this is a good one and it's a hard one. These verses are very difficult to practice. Okay. Vishayendriya samyogat, by connection with the indriyas which reach out to the objects, sense organs that reach out to the objects, by their contact, the contact between the indriya and the vishaya. Vishaya is subject of the objects of the senses. Indriya is the sense itself. This contact, samyogat, yat tad, that one, agre, in the beginning, is like ambrosia, upamam. Parinami, but in result, is like poison. That pleasure is said to be rajasic. Unfortunately, this pretty much puts most of our notion of pleasure in the external world in that category, right? But it's okay in the sense that as a human being, all we have to do is we have to have a learning module, right? What is a learning module? All this stuff about artificial intelligence. What is this? It can even be programmed into computers. What is the learning module? You present it with an experience. What is AI is the same thing, right? They call these generative adversarial networks. Have you heard of this? GAN? No? So what you do is you want an output, right? You present it with an option and you give it a way to select. Is this the right or wrong, right? And slowly, it starts selecting. It learns. It selects what is desirable. Amazing that computers even can do this, right? But obviously, intrinsically, that capability is there in us too, right? Okay. So the point is, all this is saying is, don't run away from life experience, but use it in the learning module, right? So let's say we like sweets. Well, of course, we all like sweets, right? To like sweets is intrinsic. Why is it intrinsic? It comes from the limbic brain, okay? Were we not hunter-gatherers not so long ago? Okay. What did the hunter-gatherer lifestyle teach us? Suppose we were all hunting, okay? So we are all out, imagine. We kill an animal, right? What should we do then?
Eat.
Eat. And how much?
You know,
As much
because
as
you know as much as you can.
As much as possible.
Mm.
You would be a fool if you were like a yogi and did that day you decided it's upvas. You won't survive. You would be extinct. Correct? The goal is to eat as much as possible because who knows when the next kill will be. Right? So this programming is there in our brain, yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Also sweet foods. Sweet foods are high calorie foods, right? High calorie means more energy. So in a very evolutionary sense, should we prefer sweet foods or not? We should. Yes. But is it good for us today? No. So now if you go to Indian buffet and stuff yourself as though you're on a hunter-gatherer kill, when you come back, you are a poleaxed walrus only on the couch, right? But you have applied the wrong programming. The programming that was meant to make you survive well in the hunter-gatherer lifestyle is no longer needed in the sedentary lifestyle. And for that, our brain grew from 1 pound to 3 pounds. When we were hunting and gathering, our brain was 1 pound. Now you develop this giant prefrontal cortex. You can play out scenarios. And if we don't use that, then we are fighting our own evolution. Right? Now the prefrontal cortex says, if you eat this, you're going to get huge glucose spike. It's going to damage a lot of your internal organs. You don't do that much exercise. You don't go around hunting anyway, right? We can't even hunt a rabbit today if we were put to it, right? So give up these delusions and then follow some mitahar, right? So the bottom line is to understand why we are like this, right? And to be curious about it. Don't be harsh with yourself. If you like sweets, okay, you take some, right? Maybe do an experiment, okay? Try to see how much you can vary your desire and what happens, right? And then see if the programming can be examined. That's all that is asked for. Don't go into this with the attitude that I'm going to shun everything. This is a very bad attitude. That is not going to lead to true vairagyam at all. I have seen generations from India where we do this. Okay, it is a false vairagyam. Inside the mind has never resolved its hankering, right? But you try very hard fighting it. Okay, we have to understand it, right? Where is it coming from? Right? We have to be our own detective of the mind, right? Then what will happen is when the true cause is understood, then I believe that the vairagyam that comes, right, will be a calmly considered vairagyam, right? It will be a habit that you have built for good reason. Let's take a simple example. Like, how many people eat frosted flakes for breakfast?
A lot of them.
A lot of them, right? Okay. So, you don't eat frosted flakes for breakfast, right? Why is that? They taste good.
Because I know it's mostly just sugar and
Right.
it's not nutritious.
That's right. So you've done an experiment. Would you condemn a person if they ate frosted flakes? Yeah, that's all there is to it. So with anything in life, that's all we have to do. Don't condemn them for doing it. Anybody else. You have just arrived at this through your experimentation. Right? So there's nothing wrong in eating lots of sweets. There's nothing wrong in drinking yourself silly if you want. Right? But you don't do it because you have a brain and you think and you apply and you see the consequence. That's all there is to it. The greatest yogis, they have thought a lot and they've applied the consequence principle a bazillion times more than us. That's all. Right? But at the same time, your birth also has a purpose. God has given you this body for a reason, right? We are also part of the fantastic play, right? So we have to play our part. We cannot pretend that we have already advanced to some level which we are not advanced to, right? If the rest of my life I have to eat oatmeal and do something else, make some other foolish mistakes and learn from them, that is, I will accept that humbly, right? Maybe in some areas I am wiser, in some areas I'm not yet so wise, right? Bhoga apavargartham drishyam, right? Slowly, the proportion of enjoyment increases as our wisdom increases, right? Proportion of true enjoyment. Do you agree?
Yeah.
That's why now you're not eating frosted flakes. You're eating oatmeal because you know this. We just have to apply. Okay, last one, the next one, 39.
यदग्रे चानुबन्धे च सुखं मोहनात्मनः निद्रालस्य प्रमादोत्थं तत्तामसमुदाहृतम्.
Very nice. Tamasik yad agre cha anubandhe cha sukham mohanam atmanah. It is that pleasure both in the beginning and in its consequences. Mohanam, it deludes the self. Nidra, it springs from sleep. Alasya, sloth, and error. One more thing that Bhagavan has said here is in the previous verse is that this rajasic pleasure, it leads to the decline of power, balam, viryam, vigor, prajna, rupam, beauty, prajna, intelligence, medha, understanding, utsaham, medha, dhana, wealth, and utsaham. It is also the source of unrighteousness and hell, naraka. So these rajasic pleasures, another way we can apply a litmus test, is this pleasure sattvic or rajasic, is does it cause a decline of my balam, my strength, my viryam, my vigor, my rupam, beauty, my intelligence, medha, prajna, medha, intelligence, understanding, dhanam, wealth, and utsaham. So if that pleasure causes decline of these, then it must be rajasic. Now, do you remember there was one verse, triple is the gate to hell. Threefold is the gate to hell. What is that? That Bhagavan said in an earlier verse from the Gita. The gate to hell is Narakam. What is the threefold nature? Anyone remember?
Oil, that one, or maybe
There are three characteristics of this gate to hell. Do you remember the verse I'm referring to? No? Kama, Krodha, Lobha. The gates to hell have these three words on them. Right? So that is, and all three are definitely detrimental to these things, right? So that is the idea. Now, tamasic, coming to, Bhagavan says, the pleasure which in its beginning and consequences and its end and sequel deludes the self, arises from deep sleep, sloth, and error, is said to be tamasic. Okay. Now, number 40. The following verse now concludes the current theme.
न तदस्ति पृथिव्यां वा दिवि देवेषु वा पुनः सत्वं प्रकृतिजैर्मुक्तं यदेवि स्यात् त्रिभिर्गुणैः.
Beautiful. Na tad asti prithvyam va divi. There is nothing in this world, Prithvi, or in the heaven, among gods, deveshu va punaha, Sattvam prakriti jair muktam, that is found free from these three constituents. Yad e bihi syat tribir gunahi. Whatever is found is this made of the three gunas. No being is found as free from these three constituents of. Whatever is there, it is made of the three gunas, sattva, etc. There are no living beings on earth, among men, or anything material in heaven or among gods, or a being free from or devoid of these threefold constituents of Prakriti. In other words, Prakriti is all there is. Everything is composed of the three gunas. So, the entire empirical world consisting of actions, their accessories and fruits, all of which are transformations of the gunas, postulated by Ajnanam, has been set forth with its cause. This world is a disvalue. So, I think we can maybe pause here. Time is 6:23, and the next sequence of verses relates to the Varnashrama Dharma, and then that till 50 is one set of verses. So we could, I think, if we embark on it, we should be prepared to read about 5 verses. No, is that no, not 5? Where are we right now? 41, 9 verses. Yeah. So let us, that may not be finished in 6 minutes. So let us defer that to next time. Any questions?
So, Dr. Shankar, the tamasic pleasures,
Mm-hmm.
for example, the rajasic pleasures are the ones in which objects and senses come in contact. But are there any examples of tamasic pleasures? Is it, is it done something to hurt other beings, or is that what kind of things constitute tamasic pleasure?
Tamasic. So the unreal pleasures, so fantasies, right? Dreams or drug-induced pleasures, right? Because they are caused by biochemical alteration of the mind, correct? But they don't have any real objects, right? Those which don't even have a grounding in reality. Good question. Tough question.
Shankar, I have one question. I mean,
Sure.
this may not be related to today's discussion,
Mm-hmm.
but in the starting, we talked about the seer and the seen.
Mm-hmm.
Vishnu. So, I mean, so Bhavan Ramana Maharshi talks about Atma Vichar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is that exercise simply related to this thing, doing this thing over and over, to see if something can be seen, and if something can be seen, then it's not me, and then again inquire who is me.
That is
Is that
absolutely Ramana's reasonable and effective approach. But in my opinion, it was a very difficult path. It is valid and surefire. But I think without a preparation through Hatha Yoga and Raja Yoga and an understanding of Advaita, I believe that path is for the very rare one. I think Shiva's question was very interesting because I don't know how many of you think about this, but the mind spends a lot of time wandering and not present. Have you noticed that?
Ji.
And actually, there is a characterization of that in psychology. I think they call it some default mode network or something. They have done fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging of the brain when it's wandering. And they find that a particular part of the brain lights up. Okay. And so it's amazing if we think of how much time in the waking state we spend wandering. And so in that sense, it brings into sharp focus that even the Rajasic pleasures taken directly of the senses with the sense objects is more grounded. It's not a bad thing compared to the fantasizing and mind wandering. Right? Anyway.
Yeah.
Just
follow up on that one. So, the sense pleasure is there, right? So like you mentioned, like wandering mind, nowadays because of the technology and everything, its mind is not in a one.
Yeah.
No, it's like too much distraction ongoing all the time.
Right.
So this is, so nowadays, hard to focus.
Right.
And concentrate on one thing, and
It is even better to sit and eat a mango with great pleasure, absorbing every part of the interaction of the sense with the sense object, even though it's a Rajasic pleasure, than to eat it with half the mind thinking about something else.
Right.
We've come so far that even the Rajasic pleasures now are better than the Tamasic ones. Very hard. The mind is a very difficult.
Yeah. Challenge it how to safeguard, right? So we do satsang, we try to associate with the similar mindset satsang is over time, listen to the Sadguru, Guru, right? But still, like it is sticky, right? And stick to the, a lot of, distraction and a lot of things out there now,
Right.
Because of the technology and all.
Definitely. Very good point. Okay. All right. I think I will say I'm getting some call. So I will say Shanti Mantram and we'll conclude. Namaste, everyone. Om Tacham Yora Vrinimahe Gatum Yajnaya Gatum Yajnapataye Daivihi Swastirastunaham Swastirmanushebhyah Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshajam Shanno Astu Dvipadehe Sham Chatushpade Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everyone. Very nice. You could join.